Muy buenas tardes a todos. Para mí es excelente estar de regreso aquí en Buenos Aires.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be in Buenos Aires. I have incredible memories of this city, and being here, it is clear to see how Argentina continues to transform. Yesterday, I had a wonderful milanesa meal to kick off the week. This conference will be in Spanish and English. I will be switching into English.
I want to extend a very special welcome to everyone here today, and especially to those who have traveled to join us, our distinguished speakers, and of course, our global audience that is watching us today via ACTV, which is the Atlantic Council's premier TV channel, an app that's also available for download. Today's conference is titled, appropriately, Argentina's Turning Point. It's about the steps that can be taken to build on increasing macroeconomic stability and further accelerate Argentina's takeoff. As this audience knows well, the momentum has caught the world's attention, including in Washington. Last fall, when U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent presented President Milei with the Atlantic Council's Global Citizen Award in recognition of Argentina's economic momentum, President Milei highlighted the United States' strong endorsement of Argentina, calling it, quote, a historic landmark in the relationship of friendship and strategic partnership between Argentina and the United States. And it is in this spirit that we are convening this conference today. At the Atlantic Council, a global organization with regional and thematic centers that cover the entire world and the top issues across the world, we work to secure a better future, and we do so recognizing that the world is also at an important inflection point. It's an inflection point in which geopolitical and trade dynamics are being reshaped, supply chains redesigned, and where energy and critical minerals are increasingly important for the present and for the future. And Argentina is not just a participant in these trends. Argentina is uniquely positioned to be a catalyst of some of these changes that could lead to stronger and more consistent growth in the years to come. We firmly believe at the Atlantic Council that this is Argentina's moment. And that is why I am pleased to announce that we are launching the Argentina Economic Growth Accelerator at the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arsht Latin America Center. This is going to be a forward-looking initiative that will work closely with a variety of actors from the private sector to the provinces to the international community to support Argentina's economic potential through analysis and action. It's designed to strengthen Argentina's productivity, trade, investment, and overall long-term economic growth. This new line of work will focus on fostering the US-Argentina relationship by highlighting the new opportunities for economic growth, but also recognizing the pending to-dos through dialogue, relationship building, analytical rigor, and illustrating best practices that benefit both the American and the Argentine people in the long run. The real goal, deepen our integration. I invite all of you to be a part of this accelerator and to learn more about it throughout today's conference. And clearly, we are not alone in this effort, as signaled by all of you joining us today and by all those who are watching via ACTV. That's why I'd like to begin by acknowledging John Jovanovich, President and Chairman of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, as well as his entire team and delegation who have traveled to Argentina for this important event. John, who you'll hear from in a moment, assumed his position in September after being nominated by President Trump and is a leading actor in the trade integration of the U.S. with critical markets like Argentina, where U.S. inputs are key for sectors like mining and energy. He's also a former Atlantic Council non-resident senior fellow who, as I recall in my first meeting with him in his new role, is laser-focused on bringing opportunities to the Americas and to Argentina specifically. I'd also like to thank Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Worship, Pablo Quirno, who is here with us and who I will formally introduce in just a moment, as well as recognize our other speakers today, including U.S. Ambassador to Argentina, Peter Lamelas, Governor Rolando Figueiredo of Neuquén, Vice Governor Ruben Roberto Duso of Catamarca, and we will be joined as our closing speaker by Economy Minister Luis Caputo. An event of this scale and caliber is only possible through the support of our partners and sponsors, and that is why I want to begin by thanking Diego Sucalesca, Executive President of the Argentine Investment and International Trade Promotion Agency, PROM Argentina, who has been of incredible assistance for this event, including this beautiful venue that we are gathered at today. I'd also like to sincerely thank our incredible sponsors, without whom this event would not have been possible. Glencore, Integra Capital, Mercuria, Visa, First Quantum, Martin Caballero, Waken, IMSA, and Puente. Your leadership in your respective sectors is what will drive the takeoff that we are discussing today. Please, a round of applause for our sponsors today. I'd also like to recognize some of the Center's corporate members and partners here today, including our newest member, Mercado Libre, as well as Chevron, Roche, Merck, and Citibank, and thank our friends at Bloomberg, the Consejo Argentino para las Relaciones Internacionales, and the Universidad Austral for your support. At the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arce Latin America Center, we focus on the regions important to the world as an active player in global politics and economics. We believe that by fostering transparent, high-level dialogue between the public and private sectors, we can move from discussing potential to delivering results. In that context, I'm also pleased that we are joined today by Reed Blakemore and Alexis Harmon of our Global Energy Center, co-authors, along with the Latin America Center's Ignacio Albe, of a new report that's being launched today on US-Argentina critical minerals. This report, made possible by support from ClearPath, it lays out a roadmap for deeper integration between our economies in this absolutely critical field. With that, and over the next few hours, we will dive deeper into the sectors that become engines of growth, from energy to mining, from finance to pharma. But also, and most importantly, we are here to look ahead to the tangible opportunities that Argentina's momentum is unlocking and to the growing opportunities to deepen the US-Argentina partnership. As with every Atlantic Council program, and a note especially for newcomers to the Atlantic Council, the real work happens after we all leave this room as well. We hope the connections made here lead to partnerships that will further define Argentina's economic future and the US-Argentina relationship. For us, this conference is just the beginning of further acceleration. With that, it's my great pleasure to welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Worship of the Argentine Republic, Pablo Quirno. The Minister is a dear friend of the Atlantic Council and someone we have had the pleasure of hosting multiple times in Washington. Actually, the idea for this conference was first born out of a meeting with the Foreign Minister in our headquarters last fall, and that is why it's such a pleasure to stand here to open this event with the Minister. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Minister Pablo Quirno.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Diego for organizing this event together with Atlantic Council. This is a wonderful place, a wonderful venue, and we have arranged for rainy weather so that you can pay attention to us, the speakers. Otherwise, you would be looking out of the window. I would like to thank Jason for convening this very special event at such a turning point for Argentina. I would also like to hail the presence of John Jovanik from the Export-Import Bank of the US, and I would like to also greet the rest of the people representing the private sector and the public sector. This is a turning point. There are countries that have been announcing their economic potential for years, but Argentina has stepped up. We are really providing concrete situation or conditions for growth. This transformation needs to be understood in full. Argentina is facing a change of paradigm. Argentina coexisted for many years with a paradox. We had extraordinary resources, talent, and business resources. However, we had limited capacity in the Western Hemisphere. We also had chronic inflation, regulatory imbalances, and a crisis of credibility. The Argentine problem was never the lack of resources, but the lack of steady regulations that would enable us to materialize those advantages. That is why President Javier Milei made a bold decision. We decided to stop the inertia, and we decided to make the urgent decisions, even with political cost. And we started a philosophical change. We focused on rebuilding the trust of economic stakeholders to show verifiable results. This process started with the point that defines everything else, which is fiscal balance. In the first month of the administration, the deficit equivalent to 5 points of the GDP was eliminated, and the imbalance of the central bank was also improved. The real public expense dropped by more than 10%. We started having indicators more compatible with a normal economy, and this was done while meeting all our obligations and without taking any shortcuts, fully consistent with our program. Why are we insisting on these points? Because in today's Argentina, fiscal balance is not just a guiding instruction for us, it is our key cornerstone. A country will not be able to build long-lasting stability if we do not protect the macroeconomics. Otherwise, savings will be punished, and any serious investment calculations will be rendered impossible. We decided to do away with that paradigm and to uproot those beliefs. We started with reforms that for years seemed impossible. The wide-ranging regulation was introduced to have better organization for the state, better employment regulations, and tax relief. There is a concrete point having to do with tax elimination and distortion of the tax burden. 2.5 points of the GDP were eliminated. This is approximately $17 billion per year. This transformation is giving signs that the market is clearly recognizing an orderly macroeconomic environment with macro fiscal stability, trying to balance the burden and the surplus. We have a more certain environment now. We are not asking you to believe what we say. We are asking you to look at the data. This is clearly reflected in front that was very sensitive to the investment world, the YPF case, the total reversal of the sentence for $16 billion in the Southern District of New York Court establishes our seriousness in defending our interests with the support of international players. Argentina is acting responsively with a business environment that is aligned with international standards. On this institutional backing, we are also accelerating long-term investment. The incentives for large investments, RIGI, is not just a promotion system. It is the concrete expression of an economic view for sectors that are intensive in capital expense. We require clear rules, stability, and certainty, and this is for energy, mining, infrastructure, the agribusiness, logistics, and critical minerals, among other industries. This is where Argentina has one of its most extraordinary advantages. The initial results speak for themselves. The RIGI system has exceeded expectations. It exceeds $27 billion in a number of projects that were approved, and it is adding 53 billion in portfolios in the pipeline for a total of 58 billion in investment. When Argentina offers predictability, capital investment will respond. When we offer good scale, we will attract investments. RIGI was not conceived as an exception. It is a bridge with Argentina that we want to build integrally, a country where the conditions of competitiveness, certainty, and fiscal relief will expand progressively to the productive sector. Investing should not be a heroic decision. It should be a natural decision. That is why I appreciate the presence of governors of key provinces, because they can give their testimony of what is going on in the field. We are attracting large projects, making suppliers more dynamic, providing qualified employment, and providing a more dynamic movement for the economy. We are seeing the transformation in Neuquén, Rio Negro, San Juan, Catamarca, Salta, Mendoza, Santa Fe, and in every province that understands that prosperity comes when you are able to align rules in the long term. Let me share an example, the magnitude of opportunities in critical sectors. Vaca Muerta has one of the most important shale reserves in the world. The country has a mining platform that is extremely relevant for lithium, copper, silver, and uranium.
Tiene una economía del conocimiento dinámica y recursos humanos altamente competitivos. Posee capacidad.
It has the ability to integrate to value chains for manufacturing, services, logistics, and infrastructure. Besides, it offers something increasingly more valuable in the current context: geopolitical stability, unambiguous strategic alignment, and the vocation to become a major actor in the Western Hemisphere. This item needs some elaboration. The world is going through a stage where supply security, supply chain resilience, and safe access to critical minerals are no longer sectorial issues. They are now part of the hardcore of economic security. Given this background, countries and companies are looking for reliable jurisdictions, predictable frameworks, and partners that can deliver. Argentina has everything to take that space, and it can do it especially well together with the US. Our strategic partnership has political coincidence, shared values, and also complementarity that's increasingly more relevant in the economic field. We share our view on the central role of liberty, the defense of property, and the need to build value chains that are more safe in the hemisphere. That convergence has already translated into agreements, memoranda, and cooperation mechanisms in sensitive areas, including critical minerals, energy, and investment. So there we can see naturally the relevance of Jon Jovanovic and the bank, the track record of this institution for critical infrastructure and energy, which finds fertile ground in Argentina. Today we have a convergence of global needs and local capacities. Energy security, reliable supply chains, and scale projects that require predictable partners, and Argentina is in a position to become one of them. Given this framework, Exim Bank is in a position to act as a decisive instrument to facilitate the arrival of US companies, speed up investment decisions, and broaden the scope of strategic projects. For example, its initiative on supply chain resilience could be a starting point for virtuous cooperation. I would like to put this clearly in front of all of you. Argentina is looking for strategic partners. It's looking for companies willing to arrive early, grow together with the country, and capture the value of profound transformation. whoever arrives in the beginning phases of this stage will reap the advantages. This is a truth known in the markets, and it is particularly true in Argentina. Along this path, the Foreign Office plays a key role. Our job is not just to represent Argentina abroad in the traditional sense. Our responsibility is to broaden markets, open up channels, facilitate agreements, promote partnerships, and connect international capital with concrete production capabilities in the country. Economic diplomacy is at the center of our international repositioning, and that's key for my mission. This entails more trade agreements, more presence in economic fora, and more work together with the private sector. It also entails aligning the foreign agenda with internal transformation. Every step in each of those areas will strengthen the others. Every new export opportunity will improve the attractiveness of investing in Argentina. Every deregulatory progress enables us to integrate ourselves in global chains. Every concrete process reinforces the whole. That's why my message this afternoon is simple. Argentina and US are strategic partners, and that relationship opens up phenomenal opportunities for the private sectors of both countries. I encourage you to support us and to take advantage of this moment. Analyze the Argentine change. Speak with those who have already invested in our country. See for yourselves the dynamism of our countries and the diversity of our strategic bonds. You will see a country that has left behind inertia and which is looking for sustainable basis. Let me close with my personal conviction. Prosperity doesn't start from closure or arbitrariness or lack of trust. It is born thanks to liberty, order, and the decision to open up spaces for talent, work, and capital to produce. That's the Argentina that we are building, and that is also my invitation to you today. Come to Argentina, invest in Argentina, grow with Argentina. We are not imagining a future, we are offering you the present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Keynote. We now move on to our first conversation, Unlocking the Future of US-Argentina Trade. Please welcome to the stage the President and Chairman of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, John Jovanovic, joined by our moderator, Bloomberg's Patrick Gillespie.
Thanks, Patrick. That's great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Patrick Gillespie. Great to have you here, John. It's your first time in Buenos Aires.
It's an absolute pleasure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Oh, you can hear me.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Lower.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Closer
Am I
and
good?
closer.
Ish.
All right.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Perfect.
We'll project as much. Well, I promise, as everyone will tell you, the weather here, it's called good air for a reason. The weather here is beautiful most of the time. Hopefully tomorrow the skies part and you can see all the beautiful streets and buildings here. For everyone, as Jason and others have been saying, it's a very interesting time in Argentina, very interesting time for US-Argentina relations. For everyone who may not be fully familiar with the Exim Bank's role, globally, what is it and what do you see its role in Argentina for American companies?
Sure. So just for everyone's benefit, the Export-Import Bank of the United States has been around for 92 years. In fact, we just celebrated our 92nd anniversary. And when I had the opportunity to speak with President Trump and throw my hat in the ring for a role, I said, Mr. President, I would love to be chairman of the Export-Import Bank. And he asked me a very good question. Why? And if you know anything about Exim for the past few decades, it was sort of a sleepy kind of organization. But I believed in a couple things that ring very, very true, especially as we sit here in Argentina. Number one, the bank has tremendous muscle memory from doing big transformative things. So Franklin Roosevelt started the bank in 1934. with the idea that if he can open up markets all around the world for US companies and companies operating in the United States, if we could forge those partnerships, all of that would translate into more jobs in America and more industrial capacity in America. That was true. He didn't appreciate that only a few years later, we would have to mobilize that exact same industrial capacity.
World War II.
World War II. And he certainly did envision EXIM being a main tool in delivering on the Marshall Plan and helping build some of the most consequential infrastructure, including here in Argentina and elsewhere. And so it was a firm belief that there was enough muscle memory in the building that we can reawaken. And more importantly, I said, Mr. President, you deserve a frontline economic tool that works, that can help deliver your agenda.
What do you mean by front line?
Here's what I mean by that. For far too long, EXIM and other agencies like it in the United States government were reactive. Okay. They weren't strategic tools that were aligned with the moment in time that we find ourselves in. And so we were fortunate enough to outline 4 strategic priorities around which we've revitalized and turned around the entire bank. Number 1, bring the bank back to basics, right? What did we do so well for 80 plus years? Let's do it again. Number 2, energy dominance, energy leadership, energy independence. How do we help bring American energy molecules and technologies to every corner of the globe? Those are the economic ties that bind that Bloomberg, you and your colleagues constantly write about. Number 3, supply chain security, which I imagine we'll speak a lot about today, especially Project Vault and other initiatives that we're leading. And 4, how do we help US and Western companies lead and win in the industries of the future? Whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's dual-use technologies. These are the businesses that are going to shape the 21st century and beyond. How do we make sure we level the playing field and help countries, both rich and poor, partner with America in this regard? And so when it comes to Argentina and the Western Hemisphere, the president's been remarkably clear since his first days as a candidate back in 2015. It made 0 sense to him why we allowed malign influence to flourish in the Western Hemisphere. And he was committed then and is committed now to ensure that he leaves office with a Western Hemisphere that's safe, stable, secure, and prosperous. And a lot of what we're talking about here plays right into that.
Right. And a little bit more recently, the EXIM Bank, just in February, updated some of its guidelines to avoid some of the jargon about short and medium-term financing for American companies exporting to Argentina, if I understand correctly. Can you explain a bit what led to the decision for EXIM Bank to upgrade or update its guidelines on lending in Argentina, and what does that look like for American companies doing business here?
Sure. I'm going to translate that to English, right? So President Milei, Pablo, Toto, so many others, they're talking the talk, they're walking the walk. The hard, difficult reforms and things are happening here, which is improving Argentina's credit profile. All that fancy sort of convoluted language reflects is the improving business environment here. Now, we've got a longer way to go, but we believe, and this is where I kind of come back to what the president said, but more importantly, what President Trump has done in conjunction and partnership with President Milei. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the successful elections here in late last year.
Late last year, yes.
The
midterm elections,
the
yes.
swap line, the midterm elections here, other things. But the president laid out in his national security strategy a core focus on the Western Hemisphere, and Argentina is a cornerstone to it. And so ensuring that these successful reforms are buttressed by a growing, fortified U.S. partnership and bilateral relationships and investment flows and supply chain security is mission critical.
You mentioned the $20 billion currency swap line. Just out of curiosity, can that be used to finance bilateral trade between the two countries?
I don't, I'm not an expert on the currency line. In fact, I spoke to its architect in Treasury this morning as I landed because he's very knowledgeable and beloved here. We were talking about another subject, and he was just jealous that I was in Buenos Aires.
He likes Buenos Aires. He was here last year.
He does. He's fantastic. But I think what's really important is within the trade framework, within the trade agreement, EXIM was called on specifically in the framework to ensure that we could focus on critical sectors of focus and help capital flow here. And I think that's what's so important, right, is how do we help fortify the conditions to allow investment to flow?
Well, let me ask you about one story that my colleagues at Bloomberg News reported earlier today, that McEwen Copper is in talks with the Exim Bank, among other lenders, for financing that could total around $4 billion for their Los Azules copper mine in the Andes out in western Argentina. Can you tell us anything about what's going on with Exim Bank and McEwen? And is this something of a template that you could see going forward for Exim Bank?
So we are inundated with demand, not just within the Western Hemisphere, but all around the world after sort of we've revitalized the bank and shown that we could do big things. In fact, this is the largest, the trailing 12 months, largest year on record in terms of loan approvals at Exim in 92 years. First time in over 10 years that we're turning a profit, that we're returning money to the taxpayer in the form of debt pay down, right? This is, people want to work with credible financial tools. And so this morning as I flew over Chile on my way here, what blew my mind was that Chile last year exported about 60 billion US dollars worth of minerals. Argentina exported 6. Same natural resources, same formation. In fact, if you speak to some Argentinians, they would say that, you know, they have better natural resources and better formations here. But what gives, right? A couple things. Number one is, in the mining sector in particular, it's a great litmus test for things like RIGI and other initiatives and reforms here. It's the ultimate test for long-term visibility. Are you willing to put capital in the ground in a way that has to see a couple of different political cycles, right? And how can you partner with the right capital providers to do it? And so it's an area where we're very focused, also because it drives mutual benefit, which is the beauty of the Western Hemisphere. You know, it was, I was fortunate enough to speak at Argentina Week in New York.
In New York, yes.
A few weeks ago. And Jamie Dimon was there, and he said the quiet part out loud, right? Which is, within the Western Hemisphere, we have everything we need to thrive and flourish if we can cooperate, if we can figure out how stability, security can thrive, we'll have prosperity.
First, applause on RIGI. You pronounced it perfectly. So you're
I spent a whole plane ride figuring it out.
And usually when you fly over from Chile, people are mesmerized by the views. So I hope you got to see some of those gorgeous mountains.
I was just thinking of this 10x differential. I don't know how to close it, right? Yeah.
Well, one interesting, most recent aspect of the US-Argentina relationship is the trade agreement that was signed, I believe, in February. It still hasn't been ratified yet in Argentina's Congress. But John, what do you see as the next steps for this agreement to be put in place on the US side? And what do you see the Exim Bank's role within the trade agreement?
You know, what's so great about having our 4 strategic priorities is they're the lens through which we view all large transformational opportunities. And we view this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity in Argentina, not because of what we're doing, but because of what you are doing, and because of what this leadership and this administration is achieving and continues to achieve, whether it's, you know, bringing down inflation at a rate that I don't think even the most optimistic, you know, college economic textbooks, and my wife is here, I sat next to her in economics course in college, and so I managed to learn 1 or 2 things. She was a bit distracting, but you know, the rate of change is remarkable, right? And we have to continue that momentum and give people the visibility and the comfort that capital can flow. And, you know, coming back to what role Exim can play, it's, you know, as the business leaders in the room think about forging technology partnerships, you know, American companies won't always be the cheapest, but I promise you it'll be the best long-term bet, right? Think about what signal it sends, and think about the type of innovation you want to partner with. As you think about energy security, how do we extend a hand in ensuring that whether it's technology, whether it's molecule flows, whether it's US companies we have some of the biggest, most, you know, domestically focused independent oil and gas companies. I think of Continental, where we know the leadership very well. If you would have told me, you know, even a year ago, hardly a decade ago, that a prolific, you know, oil man, pioneer, right, is what he is, like Harold Hamm, would be leaving the United States and saying, we have to have now an international strategy, and our first place to do it is Argentina. That's a remarkable, remarkable vote of confidence for what's happening here. And so supply chain security, there's a ton to do there. I think we should sort of underline that in a moment, but also not leaving behind some of the cutting edge technologies.
And for more Harold Hams to be coming to Argentina, I think one of the interesting aspects of the recovery under President Milei so far is you've had economic growth over 4%, inflation, as you alluded to, got near 300% annually. Now it's down to 30% approximately. And there's a fiscal surplus, there's a trade surplus, but foreign direct investment has not been, say, a spearheading the recovery, hasn't been driving economic growth. It's starting to pick up, but it's by no means the top driver of growth and the recovery right now. So when you speak with American firms, John, what do they need to see in Argentina from a policy or a credit perspective to invest more or go bigger in Argentina?
I think they want to see exactly the reforms that are in stream. There are so many. I mean, RIGI provides so many aspects of it, right? It offers you the ability to think about repatriation, about some of the traditional challenges around importing equipment, components, spare parts. It also ensures that you have real visibility with regards to the tax regime that you'll be subject to, and in a way that's future-proofed. And by the way, talking about what's so unique about Argentina is the key role that the provinces play, right? And the provincial leadership plays. And so having them opt into the framework is really important, especially it pertains to natural resources, but whether it's labor reform, whether it's Glacier tomorrow, which I know is a hot topic that I discussed. These are the things that they want to see. This is the time. And so the more that we can amplify and offer that opportunity, and XM be a tip of the spear for American companies wanting to do more here, the better.
Do American firms ever bring up the current currency controls and capital controls that are still in place? Is that an impediment to business?
I think people with the level of sophistication that we're talking about, where if you think about the thresholds of investment, these are minimum of hundreds of millions of dollars. They understand some of the complexity. They understand that these things takes time. But what they also really appreciate is a sense of urgency. And what's remarkable to see is what this government was able to achieve in terms of economic reforms with 10% or 15% footprint in the various parliament and lower chambers, right? It's remarkable. And now after the midterm win that you alluded to a moment ago, it's everyone's anticipation that they'll accelerate, but also the stakes are higher. People's expectations are higher. And to see how young people voted here, 16 to 35, I think this administration won 70% of those votes. 7 out of every 10 young people in Argentina said that they want change. They want a future defined by closer partnership, integration with the West, integration with free and robust capital markets, supply chain security, energy independence and energy leadership here, both domestically on the continent and as an exporter. These are very, very clear signals that we all have to harness and help move forward.
And beyond the trade agreement, we've had a $20 billion IMF agreement that the Secretary Besson was here a year ago to champion and support. Then there was, of course, the $20 billion swap line. How much sort of more U.S. support can the U.S. provide to Argentina? It's already kind of rolled out the red carpet.
Look, you want to talk about talking the talk and walking the walk. President Trump did exactly what he said he was going to do, which is ensure that those within the Western Hemisphere who want to stand up to corrosive far-left ideology and corruption and falling behind, right? If you do the hard part here, we will be there to support you. And that's exactly what President Trump did and what Secretary Besson engineered. And, and to their credit, the American people made a profit on it, right? But it came at the right time. And I think what we've learned is that timing is everything. And this is the moment where we want to ensure that more investment flows here because people are starting to have enough of that long-term visibility where they have the certainty to move.
And just to touch on Argentina's context within global events, we obviously know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the Middle East right now. You were, before your time in public office, you were at Mercuria, and you know
Don't hold that against me, please.
No. They're actually expanding significantly in Argentina right now with, I believe, a $6 billion project. But what I wanted to ask is, Vaca Muerta, the oil, oil and gas shale patch down in Patagonia, it's booming considerably. Production and exports are really picking up. How do you see, how can Argentina, from the perspective of US, from the Exim Bank, excuse me, can position itself as a safe, reliable source of energy in a context where we've seen global supply lines interrupted by this conflict in the Middle East?
It's I've spent my entire career in energy, commodities, critical infrastructure, infrastructure services, and what we're witnessing now is a tectonic shift in supply chains for critical raw materials, for hydrocarbons, for you name it, right? And there is, and this kind of comes back to a lot of what the president has been focused on when he says supply chain security, is that we've become over-reliant on supply chains and supply routes that oftentimes aren't free, fair, functioning anymore, or are fraught with all sorts of issues. And so this is the perfect opportunity to be Argentina, from my perspective, right? If you have the opportunity to emerge as a regional leader that can bring hemisphere-wide energy security and stability, what a perfect time. And
be World Cup champions.
listen, I can't. There's where my prognosis falls short. But I think it's the right time.
Great. Well, John, thank you so much for coming to Buenos Aires, and I hope you get some good steak, some good wine tonight, and enjoy this beautiful city.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We thank President and Chairman of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, John Jovanovic, and Bloomberg's Patrick Gillespie. We ask that the audience please remain in their seats during the transition. To open the next segment, please welcome Diego Zucalesca, Executive President of the Argentine Investment and International Trade Promotion Agency, PROM-Argentina.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you at Palacio Libertad. I would like to thank the Atlantic Council for coming to Argentina. In a way, I was part of the organization of this event, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate. As we prepared for this event, we had some remembrance of the Argentina Week. The Argentina Week was a very special week in New York. It was surrounded by a very special atmosphere, which is also found here in this event today, where we can see the close relationship between the US and Argentina. I believe that this is a historic milestone in the bilateral relations between both countries. We are talking about investment, and the US plays a key role as a main direct investor. It involves 17% of foreign direct investment in Argentina. It is the third country in terms of Argentine imports. And this is the landscape today, and it will keep on improving. This kind of event in this historical From this historical perspective, we would also like to talk about Prom Argentina. Prom Argentina is a promotion agency. In 2024, it reports to the Secretary to the President, Karina Milei. It follows in the footsteps of the most successful models around the world for the promotion of our country, and we have received explicit recognition for the promotion to attract investments and international trade during this administration. This has become widespread in all areas of government, and we are working with coordinated efforts, and Argentina Week is proof of that collaborative work. Promotion takes a key role, and His Excellency Minister Pablo Quirno was precisely referring to that joint work in terms of promotion in all areas of government. And this event is framed in that recognition. Not only Argentina Week was a very important event. We had representatives from the mining sector. Last year, we also had an Argentine mission with the presidents of the governors. There is a new Argentina where the governors are part of the picture. And this is a very powerful tool of collaboration. The national government collaborating with the provincial governments, with President Milei's policy. And this is the kind of event that we organize at Prom Argentina, our agency. I am here precisely to tell you that we have also launched an investor guide. Argentina did not have this guide. The latest guide was from 2018 and it was outdated. So we introduced a new guide for investors. We also have a team specializing in soft landing and aftercare to provide support for those who are interested in investing in Argentina. There is a matchmaking platform so that private sector stakeholders, which are the wealth generators, will be able to find the right matches in investment events that are funded by the private sector. There is a team that is also supporting 1,500 companies in different business meetings, missions. We will also have trade shows together with our meat producers, for instance, in the near future, where we will take advantage of the benefits of the trade agreement between Argentina and the US. In a nutshell, what we do is to provide articulation with different areas of the national government, the provincial government, the associations and chambers, and with different stakeholders to promote dialogue between public and private sectors so that investment will be effective. That is why we believe in this kind of event, and we take advantage of these events to reinforce our partnerships. Argentina is ready to receive investment, and there is proof of that. As Minister Quirno said, data speaks for itself. And I would like to welcome you formally and say that Prom Argentina is at your disposal to provide you with assistance during the journey of investing in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The road ahead for critical sectors. If you'd like to ask any questions or participate, please submit them to askac.org. Now, please welcome our panel on advancing Argentina's investment potential. Please welcome to the stage Federico Elewaut, General Manager of Citibank Argentina, Maria Pia Orihuela, General Manager of Roche and Gene Tech N&D, and Sergio Leo, Chief Industries Officer of the IDB Invest. This session will be moderated by Bloomberg's Manuela Tobias.
Okay. We're going to be doing this in English, but all of our panelists also speak Spanish, so feel free to do some Spanglish mix, and there might also be some questions from the audience. We have a great panel, I think, today. I want to start with Sergio from IDB Invest. We've heard announcements from IDB Invest this year in everything from River Plate Stadium to lithium mining in the north of Argentina. Can you tell us what sort of investments we can expect for the rest of the year?
Real pleasure to be here. Gracias, Manuela. Gracias, Atlantic Council. So let's
Thank you, Manuela and Atlantic Council.
first. This is a great moment for the institution as it is for Argentina. We just went through a huge capital increase. We now have commitments from all 48 countries that are the owners of IDB Invest to raise their stake and leave us with $7 billion of capital that will eventually give us room for more than $20 billion of financings a year in the next, or starting in 5 years from now, as the new capital kicks in. In that context, we want to be relevant for all 26 countries where we operate in Latin America and the Caribbean. Argentina is not an exception. In 2025, Argentina was the largest country in terms of exposure that we were able to commit to. And for 2026, we started even stronger than 2025. The pipeline we have is between $1.5 and $2 billion. Manuela made reference to critical minerals in the north and River Plate. That talks about the boundaries within which we operate, but that's not exactly only what we do. IDB Invest is about different sectors, and it's about adding value not only with financing, but also with being the enabler for projects to come to life. We have a strong pipeline in infrastructure and energy. We have a strong pipeline with banks, with whom we sign lines of credit to support, in particular, MSMEs, pymes. But we also add value in sectors that are helping the country to transform. Let me give you an example: fertilizers. The concept of transforming gas into food is huge. Urea imports in Latin America amount for about 10 million tons a year. Argentina can, with the proper capex, transform gas into urea, and that's going to be a great opportunity that we are pursuing when and if the business that is looking at those opportunities moves on. It's not only fertilizers, it's not only the financial sector, it's industries that want to transform themselves, and that's what we want to call the bank. It's a bank that is looking to make projects bankable at scale. I'll stop there, and probably later on we can add more details.
Maria Pia, we're lucky to have you from Roche. Can you, John and Patrick talked earlier about the trade agreement with the United States. Can you tell us, pharma was a big player in these negotiations. What benefits can Argentina expect once that is ratified, once that comes into effect, particularly for drug prices? Can we see lower costs in the foreseeable future?
Thank you, Manuela, for the question. I'm very happy to be here, and I'll do my best in English. So if I have to switch to Spanish at some time, please bear with me. I'm very happy, I was saying, to be here, particularly because today we are celebrating World Health Day. I don't know if you are all aware, but this is a very important moment to reflect on the importance that healthcare has on populations, and also to reflect why the investment in health means not only social benefits for societies, but also it's very important for the economic growth of the countries, of the economies. So I wanted to share that with you because it's important within this context. Regarding the ARTI, we congratulate the government for this very important milestone to put Argentina in so much better conditions because of this agreement. And particularly in terms of healthcare, which is your question, I can say that the benefits would be in several ways. One is for patients. Patients that could benefit from the innovation faster. So that's a big opportunity that we have, to have the same access to innovation that any other people within the developed world. The other thing is for national companies, the possibility to export their products to the United States, which is a very big, of course, market. And with that, the quality that we need to have in Argentina would be higher. The need is that that quality should meet the expectations of a market like the United States. And in that sense, we will all benefit also from the local products with a higher quality. So those are very important benefits that I didn't want to forget about mentioning. And you asked particularly about pricing. Of course, when a market opens to competition, there's always a benefit in terms of costs. So we are very happy about that, and we are also very happy about the protection of the intellectual property, not only for innovation of pharma companies, but also for local ones that could have this such as a global passport, not only to compete outside Argentina, but to have their intellectual property also protected.
Thank you. Federico, I'd love to speak about private sector financing with you. While the Economy Ministry has announced that they're not planning to tap markets anytime soon for the sovereign, we've heard a lot of very exciting project finance for Vaca Muerta in the last year. Can you tell us a little bit about appetite for financing these kind of projects, and what, if any, effect the war has had on sort of the outlook and the pipeline of what's to come?
Okay. No, Manuela, listen, there is a lot of appetite for Argentina, as it was said before. And that appetite is not only for investment, but for financing also. In fact, if you look at what happened in Argentina during these 2 years, and you compare that, for example, with the Macri administration, for the same period, companies were able to tap the international markets and raise 30% more than what they did at the time. So that shows you that there is a lot of appetite to finance that. And so far this year, companies have been able to raise in the international capital markets also 3 billion. Last one was Vista. They raised a bond, a $500 million bond, which is with a 12-year tenor. Last year also we did Vaca Muerta, which had a lot of appetite. That was almost a project financing, a 3 billion investment that is going on. They'll start exporting next year, and lots of investors, banks, funds put money there, and in fact, there was much more demand than what we were looking for at the time. And of course, there are lots of pipelines or projects in the pipeline coming down. You have all Vaca Muerta, which was mentioned before. Also, you have you need to build up the infrastructure there for exports. No? That is being built. With the project of Vimos, you will be able to export oil, and now you have the gas pipelines that are being developed, and we will be able to develop or to export LNG in a couple or some years going forward. Of course, these wars are not good news globally, but they push the buyers to diversify their sources of gas. Well, Argentina is well fitted for that diversification. So we are expecting that, or those projects to be very successful.
Yeah. Sergio, we are speaking about Vaca Muerta, oil and gas, sectors that are clearly booming in Argentina right now. At the same time, there is some worry about employment, and particularly those sectors of the economy that provide most of the employment in the country: construction, manufacturing, and retail. What can the country do to attract more investment in those sectors particularly, and are there any projects that you're looking at that sort of focus more on this employment side? Is that a consideration?
So I think the big question is about opportunities coming our way or not coming our way, and there's no doubt about opportunities coming our way. The government is giving us a platform or setting the stage with some control on fiscal accounts, lower inflation, deregulation. This is what anybody in their minds would ask for the private sector to flourish. Then it's about time. I guess what we see today, I mean, Pablo Kirno was alluding to $80 billion in RIGI between those that were approved, projects that were approved, and projects that are being evaluated. RIGI projects will trickle down to the economy. And at IDB Invest, we're not only looking at those big projects, but also at the value chain that is next to these projects and the value chains that are behind the value chain, because there's a lot of local employment to be created with these big projects. On the other hand, in the corporate world, financing suppliers is something that we've been doing for long. Right now, we have 11 lines with banks to do short-term trade finance, and at the same time, we are looking at new lines to support MSMEs. Is that enough? It's never going to be enough, but I think there are opportunities. Confidence is built based on stability. Stability requires these rules that the government not only put in place, but is also willing to insist on. So I think those are the conditions. Then there's the volatility of the markets, and then there's what we can do. We can do our part. In what sense? We can provide financing. We are committed. We have long-term financing. What is it that we don't have? We don't have long-term pesos. We have long-term dollars. But if financing is an issue that keeps businessmen awake at night, we can solve that particular problem. If their concern is different, I think it might not be the macro conditions. It might be the moment where they decide to move on. But I believe that this is the right path.
Maria Pia, you live this firsthand. I'm wondering about how we make Argentina more competitive, particularly in your industry, as you speak about opening up your sector with more imports coming in, bringing up the level, bringing down prices. What do you need to be competitive right now. And I think one factor within that at least we journalists look at is the exchange rate right now. But how do you see the peso right now, and how do you see the rest of the macroeconomic factors contributing to or taking away some of your competitiveness?
Yeah. Now I think this one I will do it in Spanish. Sorry for that.
For us, predictability is very important. Predictability from the regulatory side, but also macroeconomic predictability, of course. I'm saying this in Spanish because you were asking about exchange rates, and that's so I'd rather speak in Spanish. I believe that the conditions are there for that predictability to occur. I think that the key factor is how we can attract more investments to Argentina. Can we turn Argentina into an innovation hub? For example, if we speak about the investments that we have today in research and development in Argentina, I'm talking about private investments in Argentina. Every $2 invested is done by the pharmaceutical industry through the clinical trials. That we can even grow further. We are an innovative pharmaceutical industry, and our intention is to increase our investments in the country, making them grow 3 times for the next 5 to 6 years. So as I said, the predictability conditions are key. The agree that we have is a big step in that respect. In addition, the stability that we are seeing, the path ahead for improvement and stability regarding macroeconomic factors are also key to provide that certainty to our headquarters. In the case of Roche, we are a global company present in the US and around the world as Roche. That's very important for us to continue our presence and our commitment here, which is a long-standing commitment. Now, how about the exchange rate? The exchange rate is one of the important factors for this predictability. Having an exchange rate whereby you can more or less predict what it's going to be like so as not to come across big surprises, that is key. In my opinion, we are on the right track towards that. We can see a gap between the official exchange rate and the other one, which is minimal, which is something that didn't used to happen in the past. I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but my prospects are really very positive in this respect. Thank you. Federico.
How, looking at sort of similar factors, what do investors still need to see in terms of unraveling capital controls, normalizing some of the conditions in order to make those longer-term investments and get back to normal?
Okay. No, what investors look is for certainty. No, they don't like volatility, and they want the law system or the infrastructure system in the country to be maintained throughout the time of the investments. And well, RIGI has helped a lot because it gives certainty in income tax payments, certainty in dividends, certainty in the way they would be able to convert the dollars of their exports into pesos or maintain them as investments, and certainty in the maintenance of other taxes also. So that's key, and that's why lots of big investments are being presented and approved, no? And we have a pipeline as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs mentioned. Of course, they don't like capital controls, but frankly speaking, in Argentina right now, there are not many capital controls left, no? Companies are still being able to pay dividends. They are able to pay for the imports they had difficulties in the past. So the foreign trade is very open and fluid, and there are minor restrictions basically in investments of the excess cash. No? But that is not impeding the investments per se. What they basically look at is certainty, economic certainty in the future, of course growth, and the respect of the law in the future. No? Those are the key factors.
Yeah, those last remaining capital controls, when do you see a timeline that you think would be realistic for removal?
No, there is no timeline. The government or the central bank has been very cautious in freeing up all the capital controls because we had, or in the past, we had a lot of volatility coming from that front. So they don't want to do that very fast. And well, they've demonstrated that, no? So far more than 2 years, and we still have some controls, minor ones. But that are, all the releases they did are allowing the economy to flow, the investments to flow, and all that, no? So they have, of course, the projections for freeing up more controls, but that will take time, no? In our view, yes.
And in terms of reviving credit and the projections for growth for this year, what do you see as the main driver, and what do you think the central bank and other actors still need to do there to get the economic activity where we want to see it?
Oh, well, they are very focused in maintaining the fiscal discipline and maintaining the fiscal surplus, because that gives a lot of certainty to the country. Of course, we are suffering because the country is coming from many, many years in which the consumption was a little bit, there was a little bit of overconsumption, so the market is adjusting at the time. So with this fiscal discipline, with discipline in maintaining inflation under control, that will lead also to maintain interest rates under control. The credit will be coming to the economy again. It started growing a lot, but we had some issues on delinquency, especially in the consumer side. So that is being absorbed right now, and that will be coming back. And well, when that comes back, it will start helping the economy again. But the projections we have at the bank right now are that this year we will be seeing a growth of around 3.5%. That's the projections we have right now.
Everyone talked about certainty, and I think the elephant in the room is that we have elections right around the corner once again, 2027. And you spoke also about longer term investments. Maria Pia, you said sort of 5 to 6 years. Sergio also, how are you, what message are you hearing from your clients, from your headquarters, about what to do about the uncertainty that comes with a presidential election?
Me?
For everyone. This one,
No, I can go.
Whoever wants to take it.
No, I can go first because, you know, this is very interesting. It's been, for me personally, a year at IDB Invest. And with 26 countries where we operate, 8 in the Caribbean, the rest in the region, you see every type of government, but always the same message from our side. We work with those in power to try to find the best possible conditions for the private sector to flourish. And again, if we can look at what works, is definitely the type of combination that we've seen until now. And it's easy to understand why some people wait longer in some countries to decide when it's the right time to move on. And I don't know if 2027 will add or reduce volatility. What I know is Argentina already shows enough volume of relevant deals where we need this sort of enabling role interacting between the public and the private sector so that we find the right conditions that make people forget about the elections in 2027. And that's happening right now. I mean, there are many privatizations. There are concessions being discussed. We heard about the hydroelectric power plants in the south. We talk about rail, Belgrano Cargas, San Martín Urquiza. We are looking at privatization of Transener. We're looking at new transmission lines. And in all these, there's something in common. There's something that is needed between what the government offers and what the private sector needs that needs some adjustment. And that's where organizations like ours can come and play a role. So I don't want to say, regardless of the outcome, this is going to continue. But we want to take advantage of the opportunities that there are, and there are plenty of opportunities right now that can help us skip the concept of elections, particularly in this set of investments that eventually will bring growth, will bring employment, and will bring a commitment to the country.
One follow-up to that, because I do want to hear both of your thoughts about 2027 as well. But I think that something very different from this government is the lack of public works. And I wonder how that also changed your role, for example, and other organisms' role in providing the sort of infrastructure that the private sector may not be used to creating, and that is also very much necessary for things like energy exports.
So that's a great question, because IDB is the organization that works with governments. IDB Invest, my employer, deals with the private sector. And there's an area that is the gray area that lies in between. When we talk about a concession or a privatization, our public sector colleagues advise governments on how to put together the right mechanisms in place. We from the private sector help with either guarantees when needed, rolling guarantees, I don't want to get into detail, but that's too technical, or providing financing to the winners of these privatizations or concessions. So that's actually a great way to shift in terms of who's responsible for providing certain services or goods. And that's a difference, but I would say that's a trend. The more governments can reduce their interference in some of the activities the private sector can do, in many countries, the more they are relying on the private sector and on the tools that can help them achieve these objectives. And right now, there are plenty of these examples going on in Argentina.
Maria Pia, 2027, these longer-term investments that you talked about, are they coming now? Are they coming after the election? How do you think about that?
Yeah, no, they are already coming. We are already investing, and as I was mentioning before, we have the intention even to triple this in 5 years, but continuously, of course. And I believe that it's something that is very important is that we as a country can institutionalize the progress that we are seeing, so things are not changed. And for example, with the ARTI, which is still under its own journey, it will be important to preserve the spirit of the ARTI, and that we don't have maybe some regulations, even during this government or future, but regulations that change that spirit and change everything. So for me, that's important in terms of the certainty, again, that we need to have.
How do you guarantee that around particularly like the trade agreement, for example, how do you make sure that that's going to stay in place and that, some government is not going to come and...
Yeah, that's not something that we as a private sector that we can guarantee, but the government. And again, the journey that this ARTI still needs to go through within the country to be a total, let's say, reality is something that by itself, it will guarantee that it's something that is here to stay. But we need to go through that journey, right?
And for that journey, do you have a timeline for when we can expect that to be actually in effect?
I don't have a timeline. I guess that the government has one, but our expectation is that we can have that as soon as possible. In the meantime, of course, we again we celebrate the agreement. It's a great milestone, and we truly believe that that's here to stay, to change Argentina, not only for today but for the future.
Fede, I want to get your thoughts on next year's election, particularly in terms of the preparedness of our central bank and financial system in general to weather the kind of storm that we braced last year, and also for these other longer-term investments. But first, that do you expect more volatility to come next year?
No, the central bank is working, and the Ministry of Finance are also. They are working in maintaining low volatility for the coming future, and knowing that, of course, next year will be an electionary year. And, well, the central bank bought $4.5 billion during the first 3 months of the year, and harvest hasn't even started, no? So we should expect that to continue, and they are building up reserves in order to pay down the debts, okay? And there are not many maturities. If you look at the size of the economy of Argentina and what is maturing next year, it's not a large amount, can be financed, and they are working on doing that and be prepared for that, no? And especially also, they are maintaining very tight the amount of pesos in the economy in order to avoid the volatility in the near future, no? Because that's what triggered basically the volatility that we had last year before the elections. So, yeah, they are working very hard on that, and that's what they're doing, no? Interest rates have been coming down, and we are seeing a reduction in the volatility going forward, no?
You mentioned earlier the delinquency issue. How does that get solved so that we can move forward and sort of grow?
No, it's a learning process because the economy was on a very high inflation environment. So people were borrowing themselves, and inflation was basically paying back the debts, okay, because it was fixed installments. And now people and banks need to learn a little bit how is the new dynamics of personal lendings, personal loans. And that will adjust, as happens with every country in the world, no? You have low inflation, you have lots of personal loans, and that will come to Argentina, okay? We have this hiccup at the beginning, but it's a normal adjustment of these processes.
And in terms of these longer-term investments, what sort of calculations do you hear from clients about 2027 and sort of that longevity?
Well, there are projects that are going beyond 2027, especially the ones related to the export business, no? You see a lot of oil and gas projects, you see mining projects. Of course, agriculture is one of the most competitive worldwide. And then investments will come down because with those industries, you have lots of services, you have lots of people working around that, moving around that, transportation, everything. Well, as Sergio was mentioning, then you will be seeing all those investments coming down to other industries, no? Helping, boosting employment also.
Manu, I would like to add something, if you allow me, because you were asking about not only like the long-term investment, but when would that happen? And I want to say something here about what is happening now, and I can talk about the company I represent, Roche Genentech. We are already increasing our investment in the country. We, the general managers, in such way, we act as ambassadors with our headquarters to bring investment. And we have been able to convince them that Argentina is a place to invest. So we are increasing our investment already this year significantly in terms of headcounts, both for our commercial operation and our clinical trials operation, and also investment, so money to invest here. And what is important is that the focus that we are giving to this additional investment is countrywide. So we're investing in provinces. We are creating more employment within the provinces, quality employment. And that's something that is already happening, and it's, of course, good news.
It's been a pleasure to speak with the three of you. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening.
Gracias.
Thank you to our panelists, Federico Erewaut, Maria Pia Orihuela, Sergio Leo, and Manuela Tobias. Please join us for a deep dive into the resources driving the global transition in our next panel. We ask that everyone stay seated as the panelists transition. For our next panel, please join us for a deep dive into the resources driving the global transition, harnessing Argentina's mining sector. We welcome Vice Governor of Catamarca, Rubén Duso. We welcome Vice Governor of Catamarca, Rubén Roberto Duso, José Luis Manzano, Chairman of Integra Capital, Michael Benning, Manager Director for McEwen Copper, and Martín Pérez de Solay, CEO of Glencore Argentina. The panel will be moderated by the Atlantic Council Senior Fellow, Kezia McKeague.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon. I am Kezia McKeague. I am based in Washington in a consulting firm. I am also part of Atlantic Council. I would like to thank Atlantic Council for this invitation. This is my favorite city in the world. I have many friends here, so thank you for this. I work in McCarthy Associates, and I have a multi-sector perspective. But right now, in this moment, the mining sector is increasingly exciting for several reasons. It is at the hub of global transformations. The energy transition, artificial intelligence, it is driving incredible demand for critical minerals. And secondly, mining is not only an economic factor, it is also a strategic factor. From my perspective in Washington, where we have a conference every week on the topic of mining, including Atlantic Council, it is clear that governments are increasingly focused on national security and also on providing assurance for supply chains. And thirdly, in the case of Argentina, there is a rare combination of world-class resources, an investment climate that is improving at a time when global demand is expanding or accelerating. I met these colleagues in different places last month, like the Toronto conference on mining and also the Argentina Week in New York. And there is a clear perception of investor interest in Argentina. But we know that to transform that potential into large-scale production is a challenge. It is not easy. So the question we have today is very basic. What do we need in practical terms to ensure the takeoff of the mining sector in Argentina? I would like to start with the Vice Governor, providing the perspective of the province. The provinces are key for the development of the mining sector. Catamarca is a pioneer province in the development of this sector. Vice Governor, based on your experience, what has worked well to attract investment and what are the obstacles to new projects? What are the challenges? We have heard about infrastructure, transportation, tourism, and energy infrastructure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I would like to greet my colleagues here in the panel as well. You have rightly said that Catamarca has a long journey or track record in mining. In 1895, copper ingots were produced out of Catamarca. They were exported, and Federico Chickendals was in charge of the mine. He was a German student living in the US. He came to Argentina. When he arrived in Buenos Aires, he was almost going back. He was at the point of going back to the US. They had many challenges at the beginning. They decided to try for 2 years. Production was good, but the commercial network was lacking. There were deficiencies in terms of the large distances, logistical problems. You were talking about the pain points. So what we need to do, in addition to the large investment incentive regime, there is increased motivation right now. This was latent in the past, and mining has attracted more attention. So the deficiencies that we had at that time are also deficiencies today. In 1911, based on a law, the railroads from Tinogasta to Chile to cross the Andes range, there was a project to build this railroad. However, it was never built. So the infrastructure to support mining needs to be in place. Where you have mining, you don't have energy, so we have a big potential. The incentive system can also be used to produce energy. At the Puna region, we have projects of approximately 600 megawatts. However, energy is not available. We need to struggle to get it. And in the Andes range, the highest portion is in Catamarca, Antofagasta and Tinogasta. 250 volcanoes are there, and several studies have been conducted for geothermal energy. And we have very similar rates in terms of depth and heat cores between 450 and 500 degrees, very similar to Iceland. And this is very interesting because we can have operations for lithium, copper, molybdenum, and several other core minerals, but we can also produce clean energy. And that is key because right now we are using gas. There is a little bit of gas reserves, but they are not enough. We also have fossil fuels. If we want to do the transition to clean energy, we need to try to use every resource we have. One of the panelists said that in Chile, they exported almost $60 billion in minerals, and in Argentina, only 6,000. Catamarca is very close to Chile. We are close to the border with Chile. That region, it is the top producing region in Chile, Antofagasta. 50% of the mining operations in Chile are in Antofagasta. They are the #1 producer of renewable energies. So we want to look in that direction. We want to have more energy. We need to develop the road infrastructure. Antofagasta was very difficult to access because of the rivers. And now we have bridges and we have some other means to reach this place. And another panelist also said, well, ask those who are in the province. Those who live in Catamarca, they have track record. We have Glencore, Rio Tinto, Sishin. The 5 largest companies in the world, well, 3 of them are present in Catamarca. One of them has been present there since 1997. Catamarca was the first province in Argentina to produce lithium. In 1989, we were already using direct lithium extraction, and the method changed, but then the company was sold, and together with Galaxy, well, Rio Tinto is the company that acquired those operations, and they have capacity to expand. They have already approved investments for $251 million. There is another investment that has already been approved for $217 million. There is another operation for silver and gold for $700 million. This is in an area that is close to the border between Salta and Catamarca provinces. So 50% is for Salta, 50% for Catamarca. So there are considerable investments that have been approved, and they have hit a record. And this covers the large mining projects. These projects are over $250 million each. Now, we are also focused on small and medium enterprises in the mining sector so that they will also get support and they will be able to develop their operations so that the benefits reach all sectors and not just the large companies. The small and medium companies need to benefit as well. Talking about Glencore, which has a major presence in Argentina, in addition to Catamarca, it is present in San Juan. Martin, can you please tell us about those projects? Based on your experience, what is working in Argentina and what are the pain points for those projects? We have been talking this afternoon, starting with the minister who opened the session with all the initiatives to open up to investment. Well, the country is very well positioned in terms of minerals. it is very attractive. Now, given the international context and the local opportunities, we just need leadership from those players that decide to take a leading role. The large companies have started taking responsibility for these projects, leading the projects. I believe that is what we need to do, to take a bold step forward. At Glencore, we set an objective for ourselves a year ago. Ruben was talking about 1997 when we started building La Lumbrera. We started operating in 1997 and we produced copper until 2018. Now we would like to go back to production in La Lumbrera. And the advantage will be that Argentine copper will be back in the market in 2028. This is just around the corner, thinking about the timeline for mining. This enables us to create a transition for mining and to rekindle the mining DNA that is so characteristic of our country. In Catamarca, there are precedents of mining activity from the Spaniards' time.
We have three very clear development stages. One is the restarting of Alumbrera. The second stage is the construction of rich water using the existing infrastructure in Alumbrera, like the mineral transportation duct and the loading at the Rosario port. And the third project, we believe that the rich water mineral will be in 2031, 2032, when the restart mineral starts to decline in La Lumbrera. And in 2033, 34, we will have Pachón in full production in the province of San Juan. Pachón is a huge project. It is a mining district in terms of mineral wealth or richness, with very big logistical and infrastructure complexities, but with a fantastic mining potential. And this sequence of projects in the pipeline has enabled us to speed up, which is like the motto of this conference, in a sustained manner. So in a year, we submitted the RIGIs. We started to work with the government of the province of Catamarca for all the permits and approvals. We had started to work with the local communities to develop the vendors we need for the project, both in Catamarca and in San Juan provinces. We started to work on infrastructure investment in the communities in Catamarca. We are currently working together with the government on the bypass to the main cities surrounding our operation in San Juan, with the building of 2 bridges. So we have started to do everything that the mining industry needs for this to become a reality. So I believe we have tried to put Argentina in this experiment of speeding up mining and to produce a lot of activity in a year's time. And today we are looking forward for the approval of our RIGIs for Pachona, for Agua Rica. So I believe that it's a complex system and that it takes time, but we are very much looking forward to these results, which will enable us to continue speeding up and delivering the results expected for Argentina. Now, there's another copper project in San Juan, in Los Azules. Michael, would you like to tell us about this project and whether you agree with Martin as to what needs to be done to continue making progress? What was missing in Argentina was the renewal of trust that had been lost. When we look at the mining investment in the 90s and the boom of mining that used to be a reality, the trust in the mining industry was lost. And RIGI has come to replace this and bring that trust back. The lithium project, when the lithium prices were very high, they were able to make progress independently of the time of lack of trust. But the big projects of copper and silver need long-term incentive systems and long-term stability. Our project is one of the largest projects worldwide, jointly with Pachón and Vicuña. We are among the top 10 worldwide. We have published feasibility studies recently after having obtained the approval through RIGI, 22 years plus an extra 33 upside year. So in total, 55 years of the life of the production of the mines of copper already ready for industrial use. Even in Argentina, the environmental footprint is very low. The interesting thing for all these projects to come to fruition is that we managed to attract the necessary capital for those mega investments, $4 billion. We have heard our colleagues from Vicuña talking about $18 billion. So these are very large investments. Normally, a single company can't do on its own. So we look for partnerships, and Argentina competes globally with Chile, Peru, and with other places like Canada and the US. And what happened to me in international conferences over the past 4 years, where I used to be told, what a nice project, what a pity that it's in Argentina, I used to be told that has changed. In Florida, in Canada, US, New York, Argentina, now they're telling me how interesting Argentina is, what a beautiful project. So the narrative has changed, and that is very positive. We have also heard that international funding organizations and the credit agents, XM and IDC, many other banks of the same type, have a different predisposition towards funding to Argentina. 2 or 3 years ago, it was very complex, and there was just meetings going on. Today, we can make progress, and we can have discussions on practical applications. As a matter of fact, we have received funding offers for more than $1 billion. We still need to close the funding packages that we want to do towards the end of this year, or by the end of this year. But Argentina is already playing in a different league. It has a high potential, and this is throughout the country. This is true throughout Argentina. We have spoken about major copper projects. What about the funding with Jose Luis from Integral Capital, from the point of view of local capital? What is the role of Argentine funding to unlock these mining projects in Argentina? And what signs does the market need to see for that capital to flow more quickly? Let me start by going back to the question that the Vice Governor mentioned. So, permit and no interference. That is what should happen in the provinces. There are some provinces that promote, there are other provinces that are neutral, and there are provinces that interfere. Who's to blame? We don't know, but that's what the situation is like. There are clear examples of promotion, like Neuquén and Catamarca provinces, one for oil and gas and the other one for mining. Jujuy, promotion. It's a government who says, what can we do for this project to flourish? Places where it's been impossible to work in, Chubut and Mendoza in between. Permitting. Permitting is not to get them permit when it's possible. Permitting is a social alliance with strong backing. Then, the national government, well, it has created the macro conditions. It's creating RIGI. It approves them. There's no corruption. It's quite swift. It's achieved international alignment, which it's become internationally aligned. This enables Argentina to achieve 2 key things: access financing from Wall Street banks, and it also enables something else, which is having access to a key element. The central change is that there is an off-taker in the Western vault, in the Western Hemisphere. The American government can buy the mineral because they want to build a strategic reserve and they want to ensure the supply. So there is an opportunity. There is financing and demand. With these two things, you can build an industry. And then the privates come in. Where do I see the role for the Argentine private capital? In the place where there is the highest value creation. It is done. It is ripe. Well, there's lack of education in terms of mining and lack of risk appetite. I'm present throughout the chain. I have dreams and I have production. Maybe it's because I'm old. Dreams are beautiful, and then production. In between, it's a mess, as if it had been written by Dante. Getting the permit, the money, building the mine, and making sure that the price of mineral doesn't go down, that was written by Dante. This is what my friend has been going through for 3 years. So we get started, and we send an institutional relationships person to get the permits. Well, you get in touch with the province, then you send the geologists over, they take samples, and they tell you, oh, there's incredible how much mineral there is. So you drill and you confirm, and that's when the plight starts. Permits are very difficult to obtain, and that's when the plight starts. But if you build, at the moment, we are building 3.5 mines, 2 in Peru, 1 in Malargua, and half a mine in Jujuy. 2 half mines in Jujuy. So we are building 4 mines. So this plight starts every morning when I pick up the phone, because we are not Glencore. It's harder for us. It is a place where the highest amount of value is created. I would love to get competitors, Argentine competitors, in all bidding processes. That's the greatest place where value creation can happen. We have the geologists, we have the PhDs in metals, in nuclear physics. There is capital in Argentina. You can spend $50, $100 billion per project. And there is a capital market in Argentina that is working, and that it has supported us to build our energy portfolio. Today, we are great in electricity, gas distribution, and in Vaca Muerta. But we have had the support of pension funds and banks and exchange companies. So we know we have the knowledge of Argentine professionals. We have the credibility, context provided by the national government, and proactive provinces. All of that can lead into an intertwining of entrepreneurs in Argentina, because the professionals are there, the wealth is in the land, the conditions are there, and if you drill, you will get royalties for the provinces. And where people have understood, they provide support. And where there is opposition, there still needs to be more work by politicians. Hopefully, we will have competitors in all future bids, and hopefully they will win over us. That will mean that they are more aggressive than we are. Now, you mentioned the international dimension, and since this is a conference organized by a think tank in Washington, and we have listened to John this morning, what is the role of the U.S. to your view? The U.S. is a strategic ally of Argentina at the moment. How can the U.S. support and other institutions like Exim Bank and other institutions besides the financial institutions that are based out of Washington, like the IDB? And how can the development of the mining sector receive support for it to become a mining country, which is not at the moment, unlike Peru? Well, what we have seen is that in times of crisis, there was a possible crisis. There was clear and unconditional support of the U.S. to Argentina. I had never seen anything like that. such clear communication when there was some activity going on which caused calmness in the market at that time. To me, that's unprecedented. And that's a sign clearly that the US is changing its direction, and it is building stronger bridges than it used to have to ensure supply chain dominance. So it's speaking seriously in terms of ensuring the minerals and the energy and the integration with this part of the hemisphere. That helps build trust. I believe that the president's team in Argentina has done enormous work, which is to initially create trust. What they have done is really impressive at the macroeconomic level, and having this backing gives you more opportunities. We have two chances to transform the Argentine economy. Two key things. As Luis was saying, this bold project is a very simple way to start thinking about how to fund projects. What keeps me awake, I've been asked. Well, we need to build many things in 10 years. To be able to do that, we need an amount of infrastructure and which is unimaginable. We can't produce 1.5 million tons of copper, which is 7 or 8 tons of concentrate, without a railway system to transport it, without ports to load this at. The distribution of generation and power in Argentina is not where the projects are, so a lot of work needs to be done there. So there I can see a possibility, because the market is captive, and all that infrastructure is going to be consumed by companies that are going to produce minerals that are going to be important for the critical mineral project of the US. That is quite simple, but it's impossible for us because local capitals can't access the interest rates that these infrastructure projects need for them to be profitable. And that's where we need to bring know-how and foreign capabilities and banks and investors. We have a huge challenge ahead of us. Those of us who are thinking about this, we are already worried about what we need to do in 10 years' time. I feel like leaving this panel and start and get down to work because there's so much to be done. Yes, without investments in infrastructure, these projects will not come to fruition. But before closing, let me just quickly ask you, are you convinced that this takeoff in the mining sector in Argentina is going to happen? And what is the most concerning aspect, starting with the vice governor? The definition is there. The turning point is there. There's no going back. Everyone has the role that they need to play, and they need to be as effective and efficient as possible. The national government, they left from IMAT, a company we had in Catamarca. Now it's run by the province. It's a company that has been doing gold and silver for 80 years. So we have the possibility of doing our own mining activity, besides promoting, so that the mining industry becomes more comprehensive, not just lithium or copper or other minerals, but we were just saying that we can transform fertilizers into food. We have companies that do liquid fertilizers. It's the first company in Argentina that do liquid fertilizers in Venado Tuerto. They came to Catamarca looking for sulfur, potassium, phosphorus, zinc, these minerals we do have in the province. So we are talking about mining from plants that are $10 to $40 million. they are lower values, but they are producing. We were just talking about the value chain. We are talking about fully utilizing it, because we would be turning minerals into fertilizers and fertilizers into food. So we were talking about financing for making fertilizers. So I'm really motivated to be here at this place and at this time, because it's a turning point to accelerate. As José Luis was just saying, every day we see how we can speed up, because mining is a slow industry in general. We are not used to such slow processes. We all want the immediacy. We want immediate actions don't give you permanent and ongoing results. So we need to be more efficient, taking care of the environment, and when it's possible, it will be done. When it's not possible, we need to forget about it. But we need to do everything that it takes. So you're optimistic. We are making progress with potassium. We finished the feasibility studies. We are building the pilot plant. The logistics is not resolved yet. Infrastructure, US did the package. They opened the Exim Bank line. There's a trade agreement. Now the money needs to go where the highest impact, which is infrastructure. Railways, high voltage lines, and ports. That's what we need. Energy at El Cerro, and then the train and the port. The US has big room, and they're going to make money. So that's a very concrete thing. Railway privatization. If we can bring one of the big railway companies from the US that have a world-class experience for cargo, that would be excellent. All projects would be sped up. When he says that he can't sleep, it's because the financial package hasn't been finished. Once the financial package is done, the logistics will be the next issue. I can't sleep because of logistics, and he can't sleep because of logistics, because he's a long-term planner, and Glencore has big pockets. So logistics, logistics, and logistics. And if the US brings and comes to the logistical core of Argentina, the railway, the high voltage lines, and the ports, this partnership, which seems to be political, will show the truth, which is structural economic complementarity. We have what the US needs, and the US has capital, and they need what we have. Excellent. Your last remarks, Michael, yes, I fully agree with what my colleagues have said. In terms of logistics, when I look at my project, ultimately it is a logistical project with a mine. If I need to transport 2,000 tons of a mineral and sulfur also, and if I need to transport this from the Atlantic to the Pacific, because we are at the border with Chile, so we need a railway system that's stronger. We have 4 projects going on in San Juan that will have demand 760 megawatts. In San Juan, we will need 1.2 or 1.5 additional gigabytes. That's quite a lot of energy. It's a nuclear plant. So, as my friend has said, that's what keeps us awake at night.
The turning point has already happened for us. At Glencore, we made a decision to accelerate copper projects in Argentina. We have a 70-year-long timeline, and we trust that the other stakeholders will also take action, that the government will approve the RIGI projects, and we are making progress at a steady pace. Of course, there are some roadblocks and challenges, as in everything, but we have a very specific plan that covers 70 years into the future. This is an exciting time, and many opportunities lie ahead for Argentina and the US. I would like to thank you all for your time and expertise, and I would like to thank our audience as well.
Thank you to our panelists, Ruben Roberto Duso, Jose Luis Manzano, Michael Medding, Martin Perez de Solay, and Kezia McKeague. Please, we ask that you hold your seats as we transition. Our program now continues with a focus on global energy leadership. Please welcome the Governor of Neuquén, Orlando Figueroa, Horacio Daniel Marin, Chairman and CEO of YPF, and Brian A. Fallick, Group Chief Investment Officer and President of Mercuria Americas, moderated by Clifford Chance partner Jessica Springsteen.
¿Me escuchan todos?
Si vas para abajo más.
Can you hear me? Well, we have very comfortable chairs. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jessica Springsteen. I am a partner at Clifford Chance. It's a pleasure for me to be here in this Atlantic Council event. It is also an honor to have these panelists with us. Argentina has always played a very important role globally. Today, it is happening. It has come true. There are projects that are going on, and the capital is flowing in. So the question is not, could this happen? But given that it is happening, how can we accelerate it? We have seen how the position of Argentina in the energy world has been accelerated because of international factors. How is Argentina positioned today, not just as a country with resources, but as a strategic and trustworthy partner to diversify energy sources? Governor, Argentina is coming close to 1 million barrels per day. How is a province working with the private sector to ensure there is stable growth in the long term? Good afternoon. Our province has a track record of 100 years in the production of oil and gas. Even before it became a province, we were making a contribution. We built our society around hydrocarbons. In 1920, a rock was found, and in 2010, that rock started to produce because we had the right tools. So Neuquén has been able to produce with this new way, shale oil. It has always been a superpower of hydrocarbons. Right now, it is a right time because now we are seeing clear rules of the game that have been built for the long term. The macroeconomic situation is steady, and this gives us predictability. We also have the hydrocarbons law that was introduced, and the RIGI, which promotes investments and makes investment competitive. So, based on this macro context, we have many benefits for our province. We had been waiting for the takeoff of our province for many years. We have a very good organization in our province. The industry wants to make money. We want the Neuquén citizens to have a better standard of living. So we are working together to go into the next stage. After living through the import substitution process, after our efforts to reach the regional markets, we want to go out to other places of the world and to ship our products to other regions. We have a strategic partner, which is the Rio Negro province. We have an alignment in the Patagonia, and we have an alignment with the operating companies. I believe we will have an opportunity to take on this challenge, not just as a political challenge or an industrial challenge, but as a generational challenge. All the stakeholders are there. The companies, the trade unions, they are all working along the same lines to succeed in our endeavors. What would be the main bottleneck for all of this? Infrastructure, coordination, what would be the pain points that we need to work on? We have, when the prices dropped and when we were looking at the future outlook, we developed a resilient method that would be able to withstand the fluctuations. Those fluctuations were downward last year or in the past, but now we have an intangible, which is an area free of conflict. Our region is free of conflicts, so we have everything it takes. The infrastructure needs to be developed. We have the right conditions. The pipelines already have private investments, and all the investments are leading in that direction, in the direction of ports for exports. So having solved the infrastructure pain point, we believe we have the right conditions to be competitive in a region that is free of conflicts. We have social peace, and we can provide energy security, not just for our country, but for other regions as well. We can be competitive in that regard. Thank you, Horacio. Thank you for joining us. With the progress of infrastructure connecting Vaca Muerta with other regions, what are the priorities of YPF in this international context? First of all, good afternoon. At YPF, we are working on the full development of Vaca Muerta until 2031. As has been said, we need to work on the bottlenecks. The first bottleneck is the oil pipeline we are building. We have accomplished more than 55%. And then the energy bottleneck. Nobody was taking action in that direction in the past. This is a reality of 6 million tons that we will start exporting next year. We are working on those 6 million tons. This requires a major investment from Argentine companies. We need less capital because we did a project based on the rental of vessels, but we have a 6 times larger capacity. It will be able to export condensed gas, and we are about to start a project finance with our financial advisor, JP Morgan, and we are about to introduce this project which will be transformational for Argentina. and we will achieve foreign investment. We are talking in the range of 30,000 or 20,000 in infrastructure and 10,000 in upstream. 30,000 in total for the entire industry. Until the year 2031, we will have invested $130 billion. If you divide that by the rate of larger companies in other parts of the world, this will just be for the province of Neuquén. And this is the task we have ahead of us, to develop Vaca Muerta, working with the industry, not against the industry. Of course, we need competition. For every barrel that Argentina will produce, for every cubic meter, half of it will be for export and half of it for local consumption. This means that companies should not compete but collaborate, and that is what we are working on. In terms of priorities, what is the main priority to continue building scale and become an international player? What is the limit to that? The major financial effort has to do with Argentinian liquefied natural gas. These are 12 million tons. The war in the Middle East has caused an acceleration of that expansion in scale. We believe we will have financing this year and next year, and then we will have the execution phase, and we will need CapEx, because we are talking about billionaire implementations, and this will be a milestone for Latin America. This could be a bottleneck. We have to talk with the banks. The project that we have devised at YPF, because we are the owners of the resources, but we have partners. The idea is to develop resources in an area, and we have some strategy advisors. This could be the top three. It could be part of the top three most profitable projects in construction around the world, and this positions us very advantageously. And we are talking about different dimensions when we say the United States, Argentina, and the US. We have to look at this relationship working together. We need to work with the US, and together we will be able to provide secure, safe energy to the world. Argentina is in an area that is far away from conflicts. We will be a secure provider of energy, and we are very sure we will reach those goals. Is it important to, or how important is it to have prices that are aligned with the market? That is a key point. Otherwise, there is no development. Without the RIGI, there will not be investment, and without market pricing, there will be no future for Vaca Muerta. And there is no kind of regulation. The demand has become elastic. YPF was not able to export in the past because there is a high content of sulfur in the fuel. So by applying market or free market rules, we provided a hedge fund, and we will be able to redeem it when the prices are lower. And that is a way to develop Vaca Muerta with free market conditions. It's the only way forward. Thank you. I will shift or switch to English.
Claudia has been in Argentina for quite some time now, but recent developments I think have allowed for capital to flow a little faster or with more confidence. Can you speak to the strategy and as to why you've been in Argentina for so long and not given up hope?
Sure. I think that, well, first off, it's nice to be back in Buenos Aires, and if I repeat anything you say, it's flattery, but if you misunderstand anything I say, it's translation. So we've been here for a little over 15 years, which maybe in the span of the country is not so long, but in the span of our company is over 75% of our history. You know, this is one of the most dominant positions in Mercuria's investment portfolio and something that we're looking to grow over 5 times over the next couple of years. This is an area where we see excellent growth. You know, my good friend in the room has said you can't change geology or geography, and Argentina is blessed with both. And so as a commodity partner, obviously we're going to be naturally, coming here and interested in this. But really, I think that, what's been so fascinating is that you've had a country that's been so focused on domestic energy production and resiliency, and now you're growing into an international power. You're taking your energy and your metals and your metals to the water and allowing the world to see, the resources that are here. And so with the leadership that's come from the president, from Rihi, and ability to invest more in the country, to frankly, the rock and the resource coming to a point to where it's investable. We've seen a systematic change in the way people invest in hydrocarbons over the last 10 years, and where people used to land grab and do everything they could to get a position and drill without any cash flow. I think the world has been more sober now and really trying to make sure that they don't outpace themselves. And so, from the leadership of YPF and really making sure that you're bringing in, the private world into building infrastructure to bring molecules to the water, to enhance the pipeline infrastructure, to allow the rigs to continue to grow so that there won't be bottlenecks. From the governor, from your support of not just being a, someone we would go to for a permit, but really being a local partner who is alongside us as a co-owner in every single barrel we produce. Those are things you don't see around the world, and that's allowing us to feel very comfortable to continue to invest into this market as it grows.
And how do you see, when you look at other American companies coming to invest, and how does that sort of help your investment strategy, or has it impacted your investment strategy?
I think it's, let me say these words politely. There's a lot of tourists, but I think the most important aspect is local partnership. You need to understand this country. As you've mentioned, there's been valleys and there's been hills, and so there's an evolution of this marketplace, and one can't come here expecting it to look like West Texas, looking at like Pennsylvania. It's not. This is its own resource with its own great people and its own local laws that you need to come in and you need to understand. And you can't come here saying, oh, I expect costs to be driven down, and I can't believe that, I've got paying 35% higher in the Permian and now it's here, or I can't believe that it's taking me a longer time to get to an LNG facility. You just have to be patient. You have to work with the country. You have to work with local partners. And over time, these resources will build to be that strong international power that it can be.
Great, thank you. Y hablando de GNL, Horacio, ¿cuál es el hito más?
Talking about natural gas, what is the critical milestone in the next 24 months for this project to come true, to be successful in project finance for the next year? And after that, we have the execution phase. Execution is of paramount importance. We will have the largest oil pipe with 18 inches, and we need another duct. We need another pipeline. We need to build an offshore plant, which is approximately the size of the La Plata refinery, 200 hectares of plant, an offshore plant. And I believe it is an enormous plant. It's like a stadium, a soccer stadium. That would be the size we need to think about, with 10 stories high.
You believe that you are in a stadium to listen to a rock band, but it's actually a tank. It is 98 meters in diameter. You may think that Google made a mistake. So the size of an international soccer field, that's more or less how long it is, 98 meters for an international game. So I'm talking about a soccer game, that it's as big as that. And then finishing the construction work, but I believe that we are on the right track. Also, the government of Neuquén, the manufacturing industry, the trade unions. We are working jointly with the government on Neuquén. Sometimes we argue with him because we have to defend our own interests, and that's okay. What do you argue about? Just tell us. It's an intimate room. Well, I want to take away from him, and he wants to take away from me. But we add common sense. That's the thing, when there is no common sense. When I have learned that when you are about to negotiate, you need to understand what matters for the person on the other side. So if you manage to understand that, negotiations will flow. It's not a good negotiation to destroy the other party and to keep all the value, but you need to understand what their needs are. You need to know what your own needs are and not to exceed yourself, because you're talking about the long term. You're not talking about a one-day stand. At the end of the day, human relationships is what matters, and that's what we are working on and how we are working. How does this project position Argentina in terms of global demand, particularly Europe? We have already sold a project that we will start exporting as of the last quarter of next year, 6 million tons. 2.2 million we have sold to Germany. That's a reality also. And we are also looking at our gas. There's some confidentiality issues here, but we're going to continue exporting to Europe. I believe it's a good decision to always diversify. And LNG for Argentina will help markets diversifying. We have something extraordinary. Also, in La Roca and Neuquén are extraordinary. So in this way, we will make sure that we will become a very secure or safe supplier with large investments that are going to enable Argentina to be within the 5th and 6th LNG exporter globally. We used to be 0. We used to import. People have not come to realize that Argentina was negative by more than $10 billion per year, and we will become positive by in 2031 with 35 billion. What? I'm crazy. I'm thinking and thinking. I'm so much devoted to this. It's 3 times as much business. YPF is 50% of the business in Argentina, but we will have 3 times increase. This is the end of the party. We have to get down to work, and this is a goal for the country, not just for YPF. And as the governor said, this is a generational mandate. And I'm saying this to Manzano, who's also part of this. I can negotiate with him in 5 minutes. I know what he wants. He knows what I want. In 5 minutes, we cut a deal. He's a great example of how we can do positive negotiation. Governor, in terms of prioritizing, what's in your mind? Education, infrastructure, what are the most important things to strengthen everything to bring Argentina to the next level? The effect in Neuquén should be replicated in other provinces. That's very important also. So if we all start to work in the industrialization based on our gas, and if we have that competitive advantage, hopefully we will be able to produce also more in other parts of Argentina. If we can't incentivize other provincial economies, there is a phenomenon which is a migratory phenomenon. People migrate in search for opportunities, and that is the case of Neuquén. For you to have an idea, last year in Neuquén, 6,000 babies were born, but 21,000 people migrated. So we are multiplying population growth by 3.5 times. So there's always a challenge of building the right infrastructure, because there's no economic project successful if there's no social sustainability. So that migrational phenomenon forces us to provide more goods and services, many times public, quality ones. So this is a permanent challenge that we have ahead of us. Today, Neuquén is very healthy in terms of the economy of the state, and we are devoting many resources to infrastructure, not just for Vaca Muerta. We're also thinking about post-Vaca Muerta. We're also thinking about developing tourism, production, the knowledge industry, and for us also building social sustainability with the operators. And that's why the scholarship program we have is a priority. Education is the greatest social mobility engine. We have many grant holders in our province. That's very significant in terms of the whole of Latin America. We are doing this with all the industry. Our main partner is YPF, and we are developing the Vaca Muerta Institute, and we are developing the infrastructure. There's already public-private partnership. So with industries, we are projecting the necessary infrastructure for the industry to be more competitive and to reach the 2030 or 2031 plateau in the best possible manner. We are doing this in a coordinated fashion with the private sector, and I trust very much that we will be successful along the way. And I believe that, as Horacio was just saying, the 30 billion or 45 billion surplus that we can generate is like the wet pampas without the climate risk inherent to it. I'm convinced that all the players are aligned for this to happen.
When people talk about investing in Argentina over the years, there's been some hesitation. What gives you confidence that this moment is structurally different, not just another cycle, given lessons learned that you've been here for a while?
I mean, you could say it first from the confidence from the president himself, and just standing up and knowing that he will persevere and push through and make this happen, that it's a life goal. But you can look at what you guys are doing and say you're building long-term projects that don't just, they aren't just a 1 or 2 year soundbite of what's going on. Building FLNG facilities, building long-haul pipelines, structurally changing and making sure that your provinces have rule of law that will continue as people continue to buy more and more acreage. I mean, those are the real reasons. I mean, I think that changing it on its head a little bit, it's almost it has to be at this moment. In a world where energy security and reliability is actually coming to a point where it's probably more important than price. And so you needing to know that when you're buying resources that they're coming to you, because economies are dependent on them. The just-in-time economy that we've lived in for so long is now changing to a just-in-case economy. These are things that we're all preparing for. We're all looking around the world and saying, can I make sure that you're going to be reliable? And I think Argentina is starting to really build its reputation that it will be reliable and that it can be a trusted partner. And so we want to be there at the very beginning of that and continue to invest through that entire cycle.
It definitely sounds like everything's aligned at this moment in time, given everything that Argentina has been doing to get to this place, but also what's happening in the world, which is positioning Argentina to be a real player. Entonces, mirando hacia adelante, ¿qué dirías, Horacio,
Going forward, Horacio, Brian, and the governor, what needs to happen for this to continue and to strengthen your break point like in tennis? Because we are currently in the middle of this. This is not a tennis game, but this is not a tennis game. Yes, I like tennis because tennis is an individual sport. As I say in YPF, we are going to make it, but this is not a one dream game. You view it, you dream it, and you execute it, but you need thousands of dreamers for this to happen. Unlike tennis, I believe that all the political rock and investment conditions are there, and I'm going to speak on YPF's behalf. YPF has the passion in hundreds and thousands of people who do make a difference. I believe that YPF is going to get extraordinary results. Those companies like YPF are the ones where people make the difference with their passion, with the extra mile. I'm confident that this is what's going to help us achieve our goal. Yes, we are doing the impossible, what needs to be done to be successful. The macroeconomics needs to continue working in the understanding that we need to work as a team. This is a game where we are all playing. We are playing as a team. I repeat, the national, provincial governments, the industry, the operators, the workers, the trade unions, all aligned. I believe that that's critical for Argentina to grow, and we are going to make it.
To add to what they're saying, but sitting here makes me reflect on just last week in Texas, there was a large energy conference going on. And sitting around tables, Argentinians, Texans, people from all over the world. And, everyone's flipping to the back of the wine book looking for Malbecs. Everyone's talking about Argentina. This is really where people's interests are. And I thought that one of the most interesting comments a prolific Texan oil driller said to his Argentinian friend at the end, we've been drilling for 150 years in Texas, and we've gotten pretty good at it. What's going on down there? Well, the Argentinian said, we've been sitting, we've been watching, and we've been waiting for the price to be right. And so today it seems like that time. So here is where we go.
Well, on that note, thank you so very much. Mil gracias por esta discusión.
Thank you very much for this discussion. It was really very good.
Thank you, Governor Rolando Figueroa, Horacio Daniel Marin, and Brian A. Fallick, moderated by Jessica Springsteen. Please remain seated as our program is about to continue. Our program now continues. Let me introduce Jason Marksack, Arched Latin America Center of the Atlantic Council.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jessica Springsteen, Neuquén Governor Rolando Figueroa, YPF Chairman CEO Horacio Marin, and Mercurio Chief Investment Officer Brian A. Fallick for really such a fantastic panel. In a world of secure supplies of energy, Argentina, Neuquén, and Vaca Muerta have the resources and the potential to help secure the global supply of energy. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Peter Lamelas, the Ambassador of the United States to Argentina. Nominated by President Trump and confirmed by the U.S. Senate last September, Ambassador Lamelas arrived at the U.S. Embassy less than 6 months ago with a mission to seize this moment to deepen the bilateral relationship and to accelerate tangible business opportunities between our two countries. And I know we all agree, and I've seen it firsthand, that the ambassador is doing an absolutely fantastic job here in Argentina. As the ambassador said to us all in Argentina Week in New York last month, he has also made his mission not only to help to bring our countries closer together, but he also has a laser focus as well on the importance of elevating provinces further into our bilateral relationship. So now please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Ambassador of the United States to Argentina, Peter Lamelas.
Buenas tardes, saludos.
Good afternoon, greetings to all. It's a lousy day, it's raining, but the future of Argentina is going to be much more beautiful than today's weather. I'm going to speak in English.
A few weeks ago in New York City, during Argentina Week to a packed room at JP Morgan offices, I asked a simple question. When is the right time to enter a market? And at the end of my speech, the answer was simple. For Argentina, es ahora. The time is now. Not after everyone else enters the market, not after the opportunity is fully priced in, but now. Today, I want to ask a second question. What makes this the right time to enter this market? Thank you to the Atlantic Council. Thank you to Jason Marsack and his team for convening this very important conversation. It's a pleasure to be here today with Exim Bank President and Chairman John Jovanovic, and with this distinguished group of leaders of government, industry, and finance, and from the investment community. I want to thank President Milei for the economic conditions he is creating that are bringing us together today. The title of my session today is exactly right, From Reforms to Results, because reform alone does not attract capital. Results attract capital. We are here today at what some call a turning point, but a turning point is not defined by announcements. A turning point is defined by execution, and a turning point only matters if it turns into results. Markets do not demand perfection, but they demand direction. That's what serious investors are watching today, right now in Argentina. They're watching macroeconomic stabilization. They're watching regulatory modernization. They're watching a commitment to global integration, a more open, market-oriented environment. And they're all watching this at the start of a future of exports, growth, and long-term competitiveness. That's why investors now are moving from curiosity to conviction to commitment. A little bit of myself first. Before I became a U.S. ambassador to Argentina, I raised capital, I risked capital, I dealt with regulations, I competed, and I succeeded. So when I speak to investors, I speak their language. I speak your language. And as I've said before, if there's one lesson I learned in business, the early investors win. The ones who recognize change before it's obvious to everyone. The ones who move before opportunity is fully priced in. The ones who understand that if you wait for absolute certainty, the opportunity is already gone. Winning investors don't move on headlines. They move on signals. Signals of direction, discipline, transparency, execution. And today, Argentina is sending those signals. Looking at this opportunity, Argentina, as an investor, I come back with three simple questions. Three questions. What is the value? Is it mutually beneficial? And third, can it be implemented? So let me walk you through this. My first question, what is the value? Across sectors, the opportunity is real. Mining, energy, technology, agriculture, transportation, infrastructure, telecommunications, finance. These are not just distant possibilities. They are near-term opportunities. Vaca Muerta, everybody's been talking about Vaca Muerta. Well, Vaca Muerta is projected, holds about 308 trillion cubic feet of shale gas, 16 billion barrels of shale oil. That matters because energy is not just a resource story. It's an infrastructure story. It's an export story. It's a geopolitical story. And it's a clear example why serious investors are paying attention to Argentina now. Now look at mining. Argentina has the world's third largest lithium reserves. Its mining portfolio is about $30 billion spread across more than 100 projects, and it's growing. Mining exports reached about $6 billion in 2025, with the potential to exceed $18 billion annually by 2030, not counting newfound reserves of gold, copper, silver, and uranium. Yes, uranium. Something that the Western Hemisphere is very involved in, is maintaining these critical resources for our use, for our necessity. In a world that's reorganizing supply chains for critical minerals like these, they're not just resources, they're strategic assets. And that's why the new Argentina critical minerals, US-Argentina critical minerals framework matters. It is not just symbolic, it is practical. It's about building secure, diversified, and resilient supply chains with trusted partners. Now let's take technology, fiber, satellite, data centers, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. And Argentina also has another resource, well-educated, talent-rich population of 48 million people, engineers, entrepreneurs, scientists. So as AI scales, countries that could combine energy, critical minerals, infrastructure, talent, trusted technology have a serious advantage. Argentina has a real opportunity to do this, to do exactly just this. Let's not overlook agriculture. Agriculture is huge in Argentina. Argentina is the world's largest exporter of soybeans, one of the world's major agricultural and beef exporters. So this is not just a one-sector story. It's a broad platform for exports, productivity, and long-term growth. My second question, is it mutually beneficial? The simple answer is yes. What matters if partnerships benefit only one side, they won't last. What matters is that partnerships are mutually beneficial to two sides, to both sides. The new US-Argentine relationship has real substance. The United States is already Argentina's largest leading foreign investor. More than 330 US companies operate here. It ranks as the first source of foreign direct investment in Argentina with stock of $14.5 billion in 2023. This is not just a theoretical market. American companies are already here. They're building, they're hiring, they're competing, and many are looking to expand. I guess that's why you're here. That's why everybody in the room is here. You're looking to expand, to decide whether it's the time to invest in Argentina. But when US companies stay, they expand, they reinvest. That tells you a lot more than any headline could ever tell you. In 2025, US exports to Argentina, approximately 18.7 billion, while US imports from Argentina reached approximately 11.3 billion. The United States is Argentina's third largest trading partner, and our bilateral relationship is moving beyond goodwill into economic substance. The United States and Argentina signed the reciprocal trade agreement, the Agreement on Reciprocal Trade and Investment, known as ARTI. That matters because the next chapter of US-Argentine relationships will not be defined only by good intentions. It will be defined by trade, by investment, by innovation, and by results. That's good for Argentina, that's good for the United States, and that's good for the Americas. Because a stronger, safer, and more prosperous Argentina means a stronger and more diversified supply chain with a trusted partner. It means more opportunities for US companies to build, to partner, to invest in energy, mining, infrastructure, logistics, and manufacturing, as well as technology and beyond. And that is really an America First strategy. My third question, can it be implemented? And this is where many good stories fall apart. Good ideas do not matter if they cannot be executed. Announcements do not matter if they do not change market conditions. This is why implementation is everything. And that is where Argentina's seriousness matters. From Economic Minister Luis Toto Caputo and his economic team, to my friend Foreign Minister Pablo Keynote, and to President Milei's reform effort, there is a clear objective: to restore stability, to unlock growth, and to attract investments. Again, markets do not demand perfection. They demand seriousness, transparency, direction, and the ability to execute. What is now visible in Argentina is that there's a clear economic direction. Under Milei, for the first time in recent memory, Argentina balanced a budget in both 2024 and 2025. That's incredible. The United States can't balance a budget. Structural reform is never easy. It's not going to be easy here in Argentina, and it requires discipline, consistency, and political will. The United States recognizes this effort and do whatever it takes. The United States will do whatever it takes to help Argentina as a committed partner in this journey. That's what Scott Bessent said. That's what President Trump said. And that's what I'm repeating right now. And let me be clear, partnership is not just a word, it's not just a slogan, it's action, it's tools, it's institutions, and most importantly, it's execution. That's why institutions like Exim Bank are here today at this conference. That's why the Development Finance Corporation matters. And that's why commercial diplomacy matters. Because when serious institutions engage, serious capital becomes willing to move. Now, let me be clear about the role of the U.S. Embassy in Argentina. We're not observers, we are partners. When American companies engage our teams early, and I mean early, we reduce friction, we open doors, we connect with decision makers, and turn interest into action. Over the past 3 years, our commercial team has advised more than 2,400 companies exploring opportunities in Argentina. That's execution. And this is not only about foreign capital coming to Argentina. It's also about restoring the confidence across the Argentine economy, confidence that allows Argentines to invest at home, to build at home, to grow at home, because the strongest economies are built from within and strengthened by trusted partners. Of course, challenges remain. That's normal. Read the newspaper every day. There's 100 challenges here in Argentina. But meaningful reform takes time. Meaningful reform processes have obstacles that have to be overcome. Investors, however, are not asking whether Argentina is perfect. The only thing they're asking is Argentina moving in the right direction? Are the rules becoming clear? Is the momentum real? And as I said before, and I stand here today again, the answer is yes. Argentina is moving in the right direction, from reforms to results. Moments like this are rare. You have reform momentum. You have economic sectors ready for capital. You have global supply chains shifting. You have a bilateral relationship with tremendous economic potential. You have the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. government ready to support Argentina. Now you have serious institutions prepared to move projects from ideas to financing to execution. So let me say this. This is not a moment to watch Argentina from the sidelines. This is the moment to engage, to compete, to build, and yes, to invest. So let me close where I began a few weeks ago at JP Morgan offices in New York City when I asked one simple question. When is the right time to enter a market? My answer for Argentina was simple. Es ahora. The time is now. Today I asked a second question. I asked another question. What makes this the right time to enter this market? Well, the answer is because the direction is clear. The reforms are serious. Sectors are ready for capital. The partnership is real. And because the path from reforms to results is now visible and clear. What makes this the right time? And why is this the right time for Argentina? Because my friend Luis Caputo's here. That's why it's the right time for Argentina. This seriousness in this government, this seriousness in President Milei, this seriousness in the room with all the investors. That's why this is the right time for Argentina. And that's why, for Argentina, the right time es ahora. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for those absolutely wonderful remarks, Ambassador. As you said, this is Argentina's moment, ahora, and the world is open and ready to embrace this new economic direction. I'll say, if you're not in the game, especially with the World Cup coming up, it's time to get in the game. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker before our reception, Economy Minister Luis Caputo, a frequent guest of the Atlantic Council in Washington, including next week. We'll see you in Washington, who is bringing incredible, absolutely incredible economic momentum with President Milei and accelerating Argentina's economic potential. As Minister of the Economy, he leads a portfolio that has seen the economy bounce back from a steep recession while boosting the country's exports, with Argentina's economic turnaround being admired not just in Washington or across the Western Hemisphere, but frankly being admired around the world. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our closing speaker, Minister of Economy, Luis Caputo.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias, Jason.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jason, for this introduction. And after the last speech I heard from Peter, I feel I am ready to leave because those were wonderful words. Now, I would like to recall the position we come from. 2 years ago, not long ago, we come from a hyperinflationary period of a deficit that was out of control, financed with the issuance of currency, with a default, with negative reserves for 12 billion, with a lack of supplies and strict price controls. There were demonstrations and strikes. And why is it important to talk about that? Because we come from hell. 2 years ago, this felt like hell. And today, there are people that want us to believe that there is room to go back to that kind of hell. There could be some sector of society thinking along those lines, but most of society is not thinking that we are going to go back into that hellish environment we have come from. So we have come with a mission to instrument a deep change, and we did that from day one. This deep or profound change creates resistance. This is true, and this is what we are seeing. We are met with resistance from certain sectors, in particular one sector of journalism. They are trying to install a narrative that has nothing to do with reality. Why do I say this? Because bias exists, and anyone could be biased. Journalists may be biased, business people may be biased, our economic team may be biased, Horacio, right here, could also be biased. But how do you understand the reality behind bias? You need to look at the data, statistics. The data gives us a single version of the truth. In the previous administration, there was a minister that said that it felt like Argentina had fewer poor people than in Germany. Well, let's look at the data. You need to confront those statements with data. And the data tells us that we have reached a historical record. We grew 4.4% last year. When we look at the economic activity estimate, we have reached a historic estimate. We have grown 0.4%. When you look at the series of December 2025 compared to December 2023, we have grown 10.3%. We have reached historic records in terms of private consumption, almost 8% compared to 2024, a historic record of exports. We have almost grown 8% compared to 2024. We have reached a record in our harvest with an estimate of 158 million in grains compared to the previous peak in 2019 of 141. We have reached an export for the knowledge economy exports, 8% more than in 2024, the lowest levels of poverty for the last 77 years, 28.2. This is a very high number, which is almost half than what we had 2 years ago, which was even higher. We have a record in licenses for cars and vehicles. We have records in the dairy industry with exports in the first 2 months of the year of almost $3 billion, and exports from the SME sector growing at 28%, particularly industrial manufacturing, which has been growing 62%. We have also seen exports from micro businesses growing at 129%. A large number of SMEs are exporting with, we have seen more than 300 SMEs emerge since November 2023. And we have also lowered the taxes equivalent to 2.2% of the GDP. We have lowered taxes in terms of personal assets, income, the real estate transfers in a series of areas. So the comparison between November 2023 and today shows that what we used to have back then was not working. It was a disaster. But it also confirms that this is a way forward. This is a journey we should take. And that is why we got positive votes at the polls in November last year. And that is our direction going forward. We will continue along the same lines. We have not finished our work. Of course, there is a lot of work to do. We will continue in this direction. We have come here to do what is right and what no government dared to do for more than 100 years. We are not political speculators. We have come here to implement the change. We are change makers, and we are here to do that. What are we doing right now, specifically? As you know, we are introducing regulations for the labor reform. The idea behind the labor reform is that should be more formal employment. This will imply larger tax collections, and we will be able to lower taxes at the same time. We have also launched the fiscal innocence law. The idea is to develop the capital markets in Argentina, to develop this market at the service of the real economy. We shouldn't have a capital market that is only here for the short term, for the 12 months from now. We need a capital market that will be strong and developed, that will cater for the real economy. They will create funds, they will provide loans for SMEs, for infrastructure, for invoice discounting, mortgage loans, and all kinds of instruments. We want the savings to be aligned with investment, because credit and lending is an engine for growth. We need to increase the lending levels, and we need to develop the capital market. What else are we doing? What other actions are we taking? By June this year, we will have tendered 9,000 kilometers of highways. So those 9,000 kilometers account for 80% of traffic, and they will be, calls for bids will be implemented. We will also provide concessions of an additional 12,000 kilometers of national highways. We are also transferring provincial roads to the provinces with the necessary financing, so that the highway infrastructure in Argentina will see a phenomenal change. We are also working on the concession of the Belgrano freight railroad. We are also working on the waterways concessions. So there will be tremendous change in terms of logistics in the next 2 years. And to us, this means lowering the Argentine cost. When we talk about the cost of doing business in Argentina, I have some differences with some of the economists. When they talk about tackling Argentine costs, we need to look at this from different angles: taxes, regulations, and also improving logistics. That is a way to lower the Argentine cost. What did Argentina do in the past? The problem was evaded. It did not tackle the root of the program, which was the fiscal deficit, and it only dealt with the consequences. Well, the same thing goes for competitiveness. Argentina needs to tackle the problems heads on. Argentina always increased its taxes instead of lowering them, and this created more informal economy. And the answer was more regulations, and this affected everyone. And the money that was allocated to infrastructure was stolen from the Argentine people. So we have a very different situation. What did they do in the past to compensate all the bad decisions that they made? They had a depreciated exchange rate. This creates more poverty for wage earners and for Argentinians. We are tackling the problems heads on. What are we going to do? We will lower the taxes. We will continue to lower them. We will continue to deregulate, and we will improve the logistics. That is the way we can lower the Argentine cost. So, the change is unstoppable. There is no going back. We are not going to correct our direction. It doesn't matter what the press says. We will continue with our goals. When you interact with business people, and I'm seeing some of the most talented ones in this room, we are seeing that they are investing like never before because of this change. When we see direct foreign investment that we are attracting, we have more than 35 projects that have already been submitted to the RIGI system, the equivalent of $80 billion of investment. We have already approved 1/3 of those projects, amounting to $27 billion, and they will create 36,000 jobs.
We have just come back from the Argentina week. The most important thing of the Argentina week was seeing 12 governors from the opposition saying that there's no way for us going back. 12 governors from the opposition saying no more Kirchnerite policies, there's no way going back to that hell. I believe that that is a very powerful message for investments. So to conclude, as Peter has said, it's not the time for us to be on the sidelines. As I always say, there are times in history where history changes. We are going through one of those times. This is a time of change, unavoidable change. And if you ask me, as I've been asked at the Argentina week, what is the highest risk? As Peter has said, the highest risk is for some of you to miss the opportunity to invest in this country. For those of you who may have the chance to succeed for the next 30 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Caputo. Changes here, and I look forward to you bringing that message yet again to Washington next week. I now stand before you and a reception, so I will briefly close, but I just want to recap a little bit of what we achieved over the last few hours. We moved beyond potential to map out a clear path forward. We began by launching the Argentina Economic Growth Accelerator, our new commitment to turn analysis into action. You heard from Foreign Minister Pablo Keynote. You heard from President and Chairman of the Exim Bank, John Jovanovich, of the fact that the Exim Bank is now open for business. We then dove into the engine of the economy. We talked about the opportunities for hemispheric economic security, opportunities for critical minerals. And I think across the day, one theme remained consistent, which is the necessity of transparency, supply chain resilience, and strategic partnership. As we conclude, I just want to thank the team that put this conference together. My team, Ignacio Albe, Valentina Sader, Stephanie Avalos, Lucero Flores from the Atlantic Council, and Cefedas, as well as thank again our sponsors, who I mentioned at the outset, but just to remind you, Glencore, Integra Capital, Mercuria, Visa, First Quantum, Martin Caballero, Vacan, IMSA, and Puente. And I want to leave you with a final thought as well. The turning point we titled this conference, it's not a single moment in time. It's momentum built by the speakers, the provincial leaders, the private sector partners in this room, and is also momentum that we are committed to continuing from the Atlantic Council. Now, all of you here were in the room. This event was live streamed via ACTV. I know that our founder, Adrian Arst, was watching the last 3 hours from her home back in Bethesda, Maryland. And I assume hundreds and thousands of others will have watched either now or the clippings that will be coming out afterwards. So on behalf of the Atlantic Council and the Adrian Arst Latin America Center, thank you all for your vision, and I look forward to seeing you at the reception as we turn these dialogues further into partnerships that build opportunities for the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you all for joining us here today for a special Atlantic Council Conference, Argentina's Turning Point, Accelerating Economic Takeoff. We now invite our guests to join us in the adjacent room for a private reception and remarks. Los invitamos a todos a acompañarnos en la sala de al lado para una recepción privada y unas palabras de cierre. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos.
Lo disfruto y me alivia el dolor. Si eres mío no me falta nada.